No.
This is why it's so difficult to wake people up. Okay? Hypnosis is real. It's a real thing. It's not just a party trick. Yeah, hypnosis is real. A hypnotist can, with a set of words and the way he speaks, can convince you that an onion is an apple, right? And if you're hypnotized, you're going to bite into that onion and think, delicious apple. Yeah. Modern English, right, was invented 500 years ago.
Yeah.
That's when they came back into power, and they created things like the English language, the rounder, the baller.
Yep.
They created all these lies that we're living through now. They created it when they came into power, and what we're seeing right now is the end of their blessing. It's the end of their reign as such, and their reign is crumbling right now, and they're desperately trying to throw the kitchen sink into this one because this is their last attempt.
Yes.
President. Now
I guess this chimpanzee who was flying in space took off at 10:08. He reports that everything is perfect and working well.
We meet in an hour of change and challenge, in a decade of hope and fear, in an age of both knowledge and ignorance. The greater our knowledge increases, the greater our ignorance unfolds. No man can fully grasp how far and how fast we have come. But condense, if you will, the 50,000 years of man's recorded history in a time span of but a half a century. Stated in these terms, we know very little about the first 40 years, except at the end of them, advanced man had learned to use the skins of animals to cover them. Then about 10 years ago, under this standard, man emerged from his caves to construct other kinds of shelter. Only 5 years ago, man learned to write and use a cart with wheels. Christianity began less than 2 years ago. The printing press came this year. And then less than 2 months ago, during this whole 50-year span of human history, the steam engine provided a new source of power. Newton explored the meaning of gravity. Last month, electric lights and telephones and automobiles and airplanes became available. Only last week did we develop penicillin and television and nuclear power. This is a breathtaking pace, and such a pace cannot help but create new ills as it dispels old. So it is not surprising that some would have us stay where we are a little longer, to rest, to wait. If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. We shall send to the moon, 240,000 miles away, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone. And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked.
In 1902, French filmmaker Georges Méliès created a visionary film which seemed to anticipate in many ways the Apollo missions to the moon of the 1960s. Méliès' film, of course, was just a fantasy. And the Apollo missions? Were they real, or were they just a modern and more sophisticated version of the same fantasy?
Today is the 22nd of March, 2021. It's about 4:45 in the afternoon, East Coast time. We have the moon, semi-transparent, broad daylight. Face of the moon is supposedly lit by the sun. It's the face of the moon. How is the face of the moon lit by the sun that is supposedly 93 million miles away and also behind it?
Flat Earthers discovered that the moonlight on the moon's surface would be intensely blinding based on the official numbers of the heliocentric model. The inverse square law of light works like this. The intensity of light is inversely proportional to the square of the distance. This means that as the distance from a light source increases, the intensity of light is equal to a value multiplied by 1 over d squared. The full moon, which is supposed to be reflecting sunlight, has an illuminance up to 1 lux on the Earth's surface. Look at this diagram and imagine that the light source is the moon and you're standing on the Earth's surface there on the bottom right corner. Each step higher you go, the moonlight gets more intense. So, based on the official distance to the moon and a 1 lux strength of moonlight on the Earth's surface, the Apollo astronauts would have experienced many thousands of times more illuminance on the moon's surface than direct sunlight on Earth. Every photo of the moon's surface would have been impossible and washed out.
For this time of year, and nobody knows what to do with the heat. Under sunshine pylons we'll meet while rain is falling like rhinestones from the sky. Of rock, seasons, the adjustments, signs of change. I can see now, she said, taxi. Now that light is all I can take. This storm brings strange loyalties and skies. I'm a scary gargoyle on a tower that you made with plastic power. Your rhinestone eyes are like factories far away. Fly over the beach, same time every day, same routine. A clear target in summer and skies are blue. It's part of the noise when winter comes, it reverberates in my lungs. Nature's corrupted in factories far away. Your love's like rhinestones falling from the sky. Your love's like rhinestones falling from
like a star in the heavens.
Seth Putterman called it the star in a jar, a tiny spot of bright light contained in a flask of liquid. This star in a jar is made when a sound wave is passed through a small bubble inside a flask of liquid. And this sound wave makes the bubble do something remarkable. First it expands, then it collapses. And this collapse happens so violently that vapor molecules trapped inside the bubble slam together and heat up so much that the bubble gives off an incredible burst of heat and light, several thousand times a second, giving the appearance of a star.
Yeah, copy. We are not getting telemetry from that last song. Please stand by.
And some people have suggested that it hit a dome that may be above us, but I thought at that velocity it would have been destroyed. So I didn't think much of it when I originally watched it, but I have to thank a guy named Jeff who just sent it to me again, because it really put some pieces together for what I was working on with this. And when you watch the video, the rocket just stops. And so I started looking up the stats. This thing, that rocket went over 3,500 miles per hour on that trip. Now, it might not have been going that fast when it stopped, but it was going a few thousand miles per hour at least, and it just, all that energy just suddenly, where did it go? Rockets don't have brakes. It literally stops, and I mean, the rotation keeps going a little bit, but all of that angular momentum from the rotation of the rocket and the linear momentum from flying up just stopped? No, it had to have hit something. But what did it hit? If it hit a solid surface, the rocket would have been destroyed, and most likely the camera too, so we wouldn't have the footage, and obviously that's not the case.
As the wave is starting at the bottom. So now look at the pulses backwards and forwards. That's backwards, this is forwards, coming from the lower left limb of the moon. You can see the pulses now that I've put filters on them, how they have a curved aspect to them. And if you've got sharp eyes, you'll see the sweep up above. Now what I'm going to show you now, we have talked about, and many sharp-eyed viewers have known that this was an important thing about this clip for a long time. Here comes the wave. Look at the dark underlined crater in the center of your screen. Watch how it's displaced, almost like you're looking through water. There goes the wave backwards, forwards. The wave hits the crater, displaces. This wave is displacing as if you are looking through water, the entire image of the moon. Now, I've never taken the time to animate this. I have talked about it. There it is zoomed in. Now, this is running at 30%, and I'm going to zoom out. There goes the wave to the top, and there's going to be another wave coming in from the bottom. Now, I'm going to run this at 30%, so as the wave comes in, you can choose any landmark you want. Here comes the wave from the bottom to the top. Choose any little landmark you can see there and watch it be displaced. Now, that round-looking ring crater, forwards, backwards, and one more time forward, and I'll zoom out, and you can watch it go all the way to the top.
Ladies and gentlemen, Neil Armstrong, the first to plant his foot on the surface of the moon, has been a pioneer in many ways. And Mr. Armstrong, in asking you to come to the podium, may I say that millions of Americans have admired you not only for your achievement, but for the quiet dignity with which you have conducted yourself and represented not only our country, but humankind. Ladies and gentlemen, Neil Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, Mr. President, members of Congress, fellow astronauts, ladies and gentlemen. Wilbur Wright once noted that the only bird that could talk was the parrot, and he didn't fly very well. So I'll be brief. This week, America has been recalling the Apollo program and reliving the memories of those times in which so many of us here, colleagues here in the first rows, were immersed. Our old astrogeology mentor, Gene Shoemaker, even called in one of his comets to mark the occasion with spectacular Jovian fireworks. And reminding us once again of the power and consequence of celestial extracurricular activities. Many Americans were part of Apollo, about 1 or 2 in each 1,000 citizens, all across the country. They were asked by their country to do the impossible, to envisage, to design, and to build a method of breaking the bonds of Earth's gravity, and then sally forth and visit another heavenly body. The principal elements, leaving Earth, navigating in space, and descending to a planet unencumbered with runways and traffic controls, would include the major requirements necessary for a spacefaring people. Today, a space shuttle flies overhead with an international crew. A number of countries have international space programs. During the space age, we have increased the knowledge of our universe 1,000-fold. Today we have with us a group of students, among America's best. To you, we say, we have only completed a beginning. We leave you much that is undone. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers. There are places to go beyond belief. Those challenges are yours. In many fields, not the least of which is space, because there lies human destiny.
Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Now, no offense, if you want to believe in this stuff, you carry on. I was a space fan. So for me to find out all this is nonsense, trust me, it was a tough pill to swallow. But the truth is the truth. Now when we're looking at this ISS, to me, this just looks like a fucking Airfix model. I mean, look at the shuttle. It's just an Airfix model, a toy. Look at the state of this. I don't want to influence your decision here, but if you're going to ask me, we've just zoomed in on a model here. Official footage. So I pose the question, is that real? Or is that just a cheap, tacky model? You tell me.
Trouble in space this morning as the International Space Crew attempted a spacewalk outside the station. Here's a live look at the astronauts. Well, I don't believe that's... Yeah.
Where's their spacesuit?